Well, good evening, everybody. It's I, Nick, Pennsylvania, here, as I always am, with my good friend Brendan Bond on our 141st spectacular conversation. And we are recording. Well, first off, how are you this evening?
I'm doing excellent, bud. It is a blustery, wintry day outside, but I am cozy in here and happy to be talking to you and everyone else out there.
Happy to be talking to you as well. The wind has been talking today. We've been having gusts in excess of 50 miles an
Hmm.
hour periodically here today. It is the week before Christmas. And so you have brought forward something of a Christmas grab bag, a stocking stuffer,
Yes.
a sock rather brimming over with some Christmas spirits. And we're going to get into that. But I had a book recommendation. And
Yeah.
before we get into all of that, one, really wanted to thank everybody that checked out Stole Survivor. We got a lot of really good compliments. And of course,
Hmm.
all proceeds do benefit. You know, as you said, sometimes we really didn't want to get in there. I think it's a slippery slope and it can,
Hmm.
it could threaten your credibility, but it's something we really do believe in. And it was actually the gracious people at Stole Survivor turned us on to another product brought to you by the same people that brought us Claim Home Protection Services. Now, this is, of course, as we said,
Hmm.
it's the most joyous time of the year. We are a week before Christmas, and elves. This is kind of the season for elves. Now, we don't usually
Right.
talk about elves
Hmm.
and any other time, and of course. I'm sure you know. Tell me what material really thwarts elves away?
I think most folkloric traditions will tell you that iron is one
That's
of the
right.
big deterrents for elves, which, is in short supply these days.
It is, and the prices as many metals go up, the prices are, but the prices from again, Claim Home Protection, and they have these. They're kind of like a little small ingot-like iron
Hmm.
bar. They come in holiday shapes, which is really great because again,
Hmm.
if you're going to be putting little iron ingots about the house, it's nice that they can be seasonal and go really through really the rest of the decor because again. This is the time when, our homes, our abodes are really at constant threat of a potential elf thing. So this is kind of like, you remember the club. I think you actually brought this up. The club that, boy, back
Hmm.
in the early mid 90s, everybody make sure it says the club on the handle. Don't accept an imitator. Yeah, so thanks to the people at Stole Survivor, we do not have a code right now. We're hoping to get one soon, but again, from the people at Claim Home Protection for all threats to your home and well-being, both real and imagined. Right now, they are running a sale. We hope to have a code soon to get you a little extra, but they're doing a half dozen for the same price that they were charging 2 years ago. Who does that? And they come in a little scented sachet. And I heard you picked some up. You
Yeah,
picked
because
them up
I
on this offer.
Yeah, because I have a few friends and family whose houses are currently under siege by this elf on a shelf. And like you
I've
said,
heard about that.
it's supposed to be a joyous time of year, but when your house is being plagued at night by this diminutive Sylvan ne'er-do-well, really puts a damper on the season, puts a little bit of a droop in your Christmas tree or some dirt in the eggnog.
Yeah,
So being able to
during the
have,
eggnog.
so being able to have a little like Tiny Tim made of iron that you can put on, the shelf to protect the kids, and a Christmas tree and a star and everything. It is really nice. So we're hoping people do check that out.
All right. So before we get into this, I know recently recently I've heard from a number of people about the whole Christmas ghost story thing. Of course,
Right.
there's a song where people reference ghost stories and, the Charles Dickens, the
Hmm.
spirits did it all in one night sort of thing. I was watching something on YouTube recently where one of my favorite channels, they were talking about, well, what is like the origin of ghost stories around
Christmas ghost
Christmas.
story. Yeah.
Right. And it was a much bigger thing. And one of
Really?
the things that, oh yeah,
Okay, I'm interested. Yeah.
think about like the turn of the screw. I mean, we all
Hmm.
read the turn of the screw in high school, I do believe,
Hmm.
but it sets up the story is being told around a fire at Christmas. But I wanted to recommend a book that I'll
Okay.
get to in a second. But one of the things that was discussed is, winter in the northern hemisphere, it gets dark much quicker. You're kind of
Hmm.
confined inside. You want to talk about setting the mood. Like it's
Hmm.
a perfect season for ghost stories. And so it was a very common time, and Christmas just happens to coincide with that. I think there would be a long tradition of winter ghost stories with or without the Christmas celebration occurring during these times.
Hmm.
With that in mind, I got a book from our friend Brian a couple years ago, and he turned me on to this. It's At Day's Close, Night in Times Past. Now, it is by the author A. Roger Eckrich. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. He is a professor of history at Virginia Tech and an award-winning author, a Guggenheim Fellow, and
Oh.
he lives in Roanoke, or at least at the time of this publication. This book came out around 2005, but it is a great and fascinating read. It really just the perils that nighttime presented
Hmm.
in the time before electricity. It is really wild to me how many people died trying to walk home.
Yeah.
There are some crazy stories from history brought in, and it just really makes you reconsider
Hmm.
a lot of like very simple things. So I wanted to recommend in the nights of the long moon, as I tend to
Hmm.
refer to the winter time, these long nights and short days, At Day's Close, Night in Times Past, a really fantastic read, and it further again illustrates that wintertime really encapsulates a lot of the mood setting that
Hmm.
we associate with people sharing spooky stories.
Yeah, more time around the fire, like you said, and it really is kind of prime for it. I have not read that book, but I've heard other people mention how good that book is
Well,
before.
I recently
So,
got it back, so I will
okay,
be sending this your way
there we
in
go. I'll
short order.
happily read it.
And
Uh,
again, thanks to our friend Brian, who's been on the show, I think a record number 5 times.
yeah.
He had sent this to me as a retaliation for I'm sure I unloaded several books on him, and he responded in kind. And this was a great find. So thank you, Brian. I will get this to you soon, Brendan.
Is it the Andy Williams song, the scary ghost stories
And
and
Tales of the
of
Glories of
glory? Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah. Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
I think
Um,
that came out in 63,
Something like that. I mean,
which
and
isn't important in any way to the facts
well,
of the matter.
there was a lot of good Christmas songs being written in the 60s, so that checks out. Um, like that album, the Gene Autry Christmas album is really, really good from that time period.
Yeah, I was talking to a kid. This is a very random aside. I have several young people learning Hawaiian steel guitar,
Hmm.
and they're all in open A tuning, and I was talking about E7 and my personal favorite C sharp minor and C sharp minor 7 developed by Saul Hoopi. And I swear I could pull one out right now. I have 7 different collections from Bronson Publication of Gene Autry's songbook
Oh,
in
really?
all 3 of those tunings I mentioned a
Oh,
moment
wow.
ago
That checks
for the
out.
steel guitar. I'm gonna grab one just so you don't call me a liar.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, certain periods of time just produce very specific types of sounds. And I think Gene Autry in the early 60s, it doesn't shock me that there's multiple books of that. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
volume 5 with Back in the Saddle Again. Darling, what more could I do? I wish I'd never met Sunshine.
Oof.
And they're all in glorious open A low bass E7 and
Yeah.
C sharp minor 7 tuning. And these are hard to find. If you have any of these Bronson lap steel books, let me know. because I will pay okay money to obtain those from you if I don't.
Oh,
I have a spreadsheet of all the books I have. Okay,
that sounds about right.
there's a
Not
spreadsheet.
not surprised. Not
Mr.
surprised.
Excitement over here. But yeah, but bottom line, you are citing the song that I think has
Hmm.
gotten a lot of people's attention because it is something that kind of waned off.
Right. Oh,
But
for sure.
it's not just about sharing ghost stories. There are also, I know in recent years, like in the last like 15 years, a
Hmm.
lot more of the English speaking world has become aware of and interested in the Krampus. And I
Yes.
know there's some
Yep.
other Christmas characters that you wanted to
Hmm.
talk about.
Yeah. So like Krampus, we were as we were kind of saying earlier, rightfully so. Krampus has gotten a lot of attention for a number of reasons over the last, yeah, I'd say like 15 or so years. People participating in the Krampusnacht parades, and I think that like with people embracing I'm going to say darker side of Christmas, but the maybe the full spectrum of what has been laid out over the last few hundred years has grabbed people's attention. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of other Christmas or Christmas adjacent kind of like folkloric or traditional characters out there. And there's kind of just a few I wanted to kind of touch on tonight before we get to like the big one. The first one I wanted to talk about that gets lumped in with Krampus a lot, but is not Krampus, is that of Belsnickel, which is one of the more fun names for any of like St. Nicholas's cohort. A lot of people are probably familiar outside of Pennsylvania with Belsnickel because of The Office, the TV show. There
Yeah.
was a famous episode, one of the Christmas episodes, where Dwight Schrute dressed up as Belsnickel, which I didn't realize. I remember when that episode came out when we were younger. I didn't realize that was just like a Western PA thing until that episode came out.
Well, and I'll
Or
say
not
this,
Western PA, but
it's
PA in general. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, well, and that's because again, like Der Krampus, which comes from I believe like Bavaria and
Hmm.
Österreich, the Belschnickel is I believe it also originates in the Baden-Württemberg area of what is now, well, it's still Baden-Württemberg, but it that area
Hmm.
of what is now Germany, and of course many, not
Right.
just the Amish but
Hmm.
many different Father Johannes Rapp, who we've
Yep.
talked about
Hmm.
on this before,
Hmm.
because started a cult commune in
Hmm.
the area we live in,
Hmm.
was also from that area.
Right.
So many of the German-speaking peoples that would come to populate Pennsylvania and then spread out into Ohio and Indiana,
Hmm.
this was an established figure
Right.
by that time that they brought with them. So yeah.
Yes.
So it's no wonder too that there are many similarities.
Absolutely, yes. And I think one of the really interesting things about Belsnickel is so just to kind of like describe for those of you who aren't already familiar, Belsnickel is kind of like a wild man version of Santa Claus, is how he's described in a lot of places. So he dresses in like furs and like rags and is very much like a like if we want to talk about archetypes, he very much has the wild man archetype going on. Unlike Krampus and like Black Peter and some of the other people, he does not show up with Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas or whoever. He shows up weeks ahead of time, kind of at the beginning of Yule, and he's kind of a the middle ground between the present giving Santa and the discipline dealing Krampus. He shows up, and I'm going to read a quick excerpt from a book called Christmas in Pennsylvania, a folk cultural study by Alfred Shoemaker and Don Yoder, which are two last names that hold a lot of weight in Pennsylvania when it comes to folklore.
Yeah, not the same shoemaker that we referenced in the past, but
No,
another shoemaker.
but it is funny that there's a Shoemaker and a Yoder talking about folklore and culture.
Yeah, and for those of you not aware, Yoder is about as Pennsylvania Deutsch a name as one comes across.
Yeah, it's like Smith. So just quick excerpt. So the annual visitor would make his appearance some hours after dark. thoroughly disguised, especially the face, which would sometimes be covered with a hideous, ugly mask. Hence the name Christmas woman sometimes, because he would often wear like female garb and stuff like that, it would seem like.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's a
yeah.
lot better than what I thought. Like, oh my gosh, it's hideous. That's why we call
No,
her
no,
the
no, no, no. It was
Christmas
supposed to,
woman.
no, no, like the mask and everything was supposed to have like some female features and everything, even
Gotcha.
kind of androgynous, that
I
kind of
picked
stuff.
up on that as you went along,
Um,
but
In this case, he or she would be equipped with an ample sack about the shoulders filled with cakes, nuts, and fruits, and birch switches, which are supposed to have some kind of charm, kind of that goes along with like the sting of them and everything. So what they would do is they would basically rap on the windows to like let the kids know that Krampus, or not Krampus, excuse me, Belsnickel is here. Then they would come into the house. And here's like the cool thing that, again, thing that I like about Belsnickel. Belsnickel would like quiz you before anything happened. Like Santa Claus just like shows up, gives presents.
well, he's been watching you, the big creep.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a lot of omnipresent watching that goes on here. But he would basically quiz the kids on if they've been good or bad. Like basically, have you been doing your chores without complaining? Have you been kind to your siblings? Have you been listening to your parents? You know, would either hit the kids that were being bad, give fruit and cake and nuts and everything to the kids who were being good. So it was really kind of like he wasn't seen as a evil or a benevolent figure. It was very
Right.
much in the middle, which is again kind of different from these other ones that were either scary or not.
Well, yes, he can mete out. You don't need two. This is just value. You don't need two figures, one for punishment, one for benevolence. You know,
Which is
a
very
rounded,
apt,
complicated character, the Belsnickel.
which is very apt for the PA Dutch. Like the idea of it being very utilitarian, like kind of checks out. Like we don't need two. We can just have one
Right.
person show up. And it seems like in the folklore how this was done, which we'll kind of circle back to later when we talk about Santa Claus. But you know there are people who think that like oh this was like a folkloric character that like again fits this wild man archetype and stuff, but other times it probably was just people from the like it seems like parents would have like neighbors and family friends and relatives show up as
Yeah.
as Belsnickel.
Make a little extra scratch this holiday season by
Right.
going around beating your neighbor's kids.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, would you say it like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it was something that was kind of like established in those communities. And like again, growing up, I always thought like, oh yeah, Belsnick was just like a thing that's out there. I always knew him as something that was very separate from Santa Claus. Like it wasn't like, oh, it's a Santa Claus like character. It's like, no, this guy shows up early and basically makes sure during the Yule season you are following the rules and everything and being good. It's kind of like he shows up at the last minute to make sure you don't screw it up now. So like within those last like week or two before Christmas. Now a lot of the like connections, like I said, to Belsnickel that I think are kind of interesting as well is like the fact that he uses some places say birch sticks, which are known to have folklore qualities, and also hazel whenever it was over in Germany,
Right.
or at the time Germany. So which again has a lot of connections with like the Fae and things like that. So I always thought the Belsnick was a really interesting character, and I like that he was a little more multi-dimensional than some of the other ones.
And
Um,
there's nothing really, correct me if I'm wrong, other than being eternal seeming.
right.
There's nothing particularly supernatural in his comings and goings.
Not his comings and goings. Like I mean, like I'm sure in again in him knowing everything, there's a little bit there. But there does seem to be some like folklore around him as like again like kind of like a wild man that's out there just like roaming the countryside, showing up at houses, which I'm sure was used to spook kids out back in the day. It's something that I remember when I was little thinking like especially on like really dark snowy nights, much like this evening, the idea of a fur-clad Belsnickel wandering through the woods looking for cabins to check in on the kids is that's kind of spooky. I don't know if I like that.
Sure.
But also it was just kind of cool. And as far as like the him actually showing up, we'll get like I said we will revisit that element later.
Now
Uh,
I'm curious, in that area of Germany today
Hmm.
how well maintained this figure is, or if he's just kind of being kind of usurped by De Krampus or
Hmm.
other figures, or if those traditions have died off, or if those traditions have just diverted more. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, it seems just from what I was seeing. Now again, what I'm seeing is only in English, so like this is not exhaustive research by any stretch on my part, looking at what's happening over there in Germany right now. But it seems like there is still like Belsnickel stuff going on over there. Like it's a lot. I see a lot of people dressed up as Belsnickel for different like Christmas time like parades and everything. Again, seems to get lumped in a lot with Krampus, but it's different. So it's definitely still a thing over there, but certainly still a thing in eastern Pennsylvania. But again, thanks to things like The Office and other media, Belsnickel still kind
Yeah,
of lives on.
shining a light on that.
Right. One of the things I do want to bring up because I want to bring it every chance I have to talk about this album, I do. So we've talked before about the band Stone Breath. We've had Tim Renner
Yeah,
on the show. So there
yeah,
is.
right when he was coming out with his book on hermits.
Yes, yes. And Tim and company did do an album called Belsnickel, I think back in like 2017, 2018, so relatively recently. And if you want like an acid folk album that sounds like Pennsylvania winters, that is the quintessential album. That's kind of a weird endorsement now that I say it out loud, but it's true. Please go check that album out. It's called Belsnickel by the band Stone Breath. You will thank me for that. So, so some of the other like I guess like Christmas time characters that I wanted to bring up was I saw one making the rounds in the memes this year, and I got it confused with another folklore character. You know how you see things sometimes and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Then you look at it and you're like, what the heck is this?
Oh boy, is this the one that made you think of Buttercat?
Yes. So, okay. Yes. So, um, so there is a thing called Buttercat.
And
So
is very serious.
this is serious business. So Buttercat is a cat that steals your butter.
That's
I
really the
know
worst kind of cat,
it's your,
frankly.
and it's in a lot of Eastern European traditions. Buttercats are lumped in a lot of times with like witches' familiars.
Right, or sock goats.
Yes, yeah, and they are suck. But so they come in and they steal your stuff and everything. It almost seems like kind of like brownie or house elf behavior, where they're just kind of like screwing with stuff. I always heard of buttercats. It's like I think it's like an Eastern European, maybe a little bit into Scandinavia and everything. For
This is
Europe,
a very wide area.
it
You just
is. Well,
described Scandinavia to
Scandinavia.
Romania.
Yeah, well, that whole like middle part right there. Yeah. So I always thought Buttercat was like a big deal. Apparently, no one knows what Buttercat is except for me. That's okay. But I started seeing memes this year for Yule Cat, and I thought they meant Buttercat, but they weren't. Yule Cat's something completely different. Have you ever heard of Yule Cat?
I've never heard of Yule Cat.
Yeah, neither had I. So Yule Cat, this is Scandinavian, is a giant Christmas cat. Basically, will show up, and if you don't have new clothes for Christmas, the cat eats you.
That's pretty harsh.
Right. The tradition seems to kind of go back a few hundred years to some like the garment making professions. And it
Ah,
was kind of used as an incentive for
I
people to like finish what they were working on. So
I was
they
gonna say
had.
this has the stench of big garment all over
Oh,
it.
right, exactly. Well again, it's that very utilitarian, like, hey, we're gonna make up some folklore to make people work a little harder this
You,
time of year.
if Abercrombie and Fitch tried this, like you better, buy some new clothes or your cat might eat you.
Cat might eat you.
I don't know how many people would buy into that, frankly.
I know.
I mean, I
It's
hate to sound like a cynic here.
yeah, it's a bit of a hard sell. But the some of the art associated with Yule Cat is pretty cool. It's like a big black cat like eating people in the middle of
I
winter.
do support that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I get why people like it. It seems like it's used nowadays a lot, which again, for some of the Scandinavian folks I know. I can imagine them doing this to their kids. It's used as like a, hey, you need to wear the new clothes that you got for Christmas this year.
Yeah, I don't
Otherwise,
care how much they itch.
yeah, like Yule Cat's gonna come eat you if you don't wear your new clothes. So like be grateful, be thankful for those wool socks and that wool shirt and those wool pants and that wool hat. So, but yeah, that was just like a funny one that I kind of came across. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff out there this time of year. Like I said with Krampus, one of the ones that's gotten a lot of attention recently, I'd say the last few years, again, rightfully so, is like Mary Lwyd from Welsh folklore. If you haven't seen, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you've probably seen pictures. Imagine a horse skull with flowers and like a bed sheet draped on it.
Yes.
It's
Yes, yes, yes.
it is one of the coolest looking things out there. It's so cool. Basically, people put like, a horse skull on like a pole or something, or someone carries it on their back. Basically, they go to different houses and make you sing songs. It's pretty fun. Like it seems like a really fun tradition. But again, one of the creepiest looking ones. And it's really, I think, more about people going like house to house and like, sharing food and drink and kind of partying and everything. It's not like the other ones, which are necessarily there to make sure kids behave or are
Yeah.
thankful for the clothes they have or anything else.
Speaking, and sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
you're good.
being interested in the clothes you wear, I had to look more up about Buttercat real quick.
Okay, yes, please. Yeah.
And it's I guess in the Norwegian word for it is, so it is Scandinavian Buttercat
Okay,
as well.
okay.
It is Smurkat.
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 It's a fun name.
Refers to, yeah, so yeah, so there you go. And it's pronounced I already said how it's pronounced, but it's spelled SM and an O with like the dash through
The
it,
dash, yeah.
backslash O,
That's a
RKATT. I don't know what that
KATT.
accent or that letter is called. I
It's like
apologize.
I always call it a black metal O. I know that's not
Which
what
is
it
also
is.
very Scandinavian,
Yeah, right.
but
That's why I
it
call it
is
that. Yeah.
it is essentially like an O with umlauts. It's like a
Yeah, it's like
sort of sound.
yeah, right.
Anyway,
Um,
sorry.
no, you're all good. No, that was important. But yes, I mean, there's a lot of like cool stuff out there, and a lot of this is there to support, like we've said, Jolly
Good
Man and Red.
behavior.
Yeah, good behavior. It's all getting ready for Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is one of those things where there's a lot of like I think Santa Claus is a good example of how we use folklore practically in our society, and sometimes don't like think of it as folklore. Most people probably wouldn't refer to Santa Claus as a folklore character.
That's a good point, and I think I would probably not. I probably miss myself that it is an example of folklore only because it is so capitalized upon. The
Yes.
image is everywhere, and folklore,
Hmm.
I guess because of it's always been kind of an interest of mine, and it was always a
Right.
little outside, that anything that's so obvious and everywhere it would be hard for me to consider it as folklore, whereas something like Belsnickel is kind of an outlier around
Right.
here to a
Hmm.
specific community, and even they're not particularly ostentatious about it. If I were in a culture that it was
Hmm.
as, Santa Claus for a good 3 months is
Hmm.
ubiquitous as Coca-Cola
Right.
advertisements.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't think of Coca-Cola as folklore either, but
Hmm.
you know.
Well, and again, well, in the Coca-Cola relevance, is a great example of like we often conflate the origins of folklore with their legitimacy. And I think that typically isn't accurate in the long run.
I think you're right.
Yeah, like I mean, it's something that we absolutely need that's worth looking into and parsing out and everything. But like when we talk about like what's the thing we always talk about with like with the Victorian era and like why are ghosts only in the Victorian
Right.
era and up? It's like, well, that's because that's when spiritualism got really big, and ghosts were just talked about more. So
And I'll
like,
say in the folk music world, a lot of American traditional folk music
hmm
is a lot of it. is was written by professional songwriters, and even some of it originates in Tin
Right.
Pan Alley tunes and
Right.
whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's been adapted, and some things that feel folky are actually commercial
Right.
products that
Dude, I
have
was
been taken in by the folk process.
well, right. And just staying with the music thing, like I was listening to the Clancy Brothers earlier. It's all
Yeah,
it's all stuff that is sold as folk, but like it's not. Like it's just it's not,
right.
like it did not come from the mines. Um, but like with Santa Claus, like again, I think it's an interesting example because we have these, especially with him, because it's such a, if you really like, we're not doing a deep dive into the folklore of Santa Claus here, because that could be its own three-part episode, because there is so much that goes into what we in the West, from a commercial sense, call Christmas and Santa Claus. It is such a melting pot with a lot of really interesting stuff. And when you start digging in, you get a lot of people who really want to claim different points of like legitimacy and provenance that people get very passionate about sometimes. A lot of it's because they associate it with their culture in such like a connected fashion. But when we kind of take a step back and we just talk about Santa Claus again as a folklore character, and we talk about some of the supernatural elements associated with him, if we were talking about any other elf, uh, we it wouldn't sound as crazy. But like again, he flies with the assistance of magical woodland creatures. Sounds a lot like things like Baba Yaga, like
Right.
it's very close to that.
Well, real quick, even
Yeah.
just you're calling Santa an elf is funny because I remember you stopped by a couple
Oh,
weeks ago and
yeah.
you put the question forward, okay, is Santa an elf or not? And I was reciting
Hmm.
lines like that jolly old elf.
Yeah.
Well, why is he so much bigger than all the other elves? Like, why is Santa an elf or not?
Well,
And I
right.
thought that was a much more interesting question than you had intended it to
Right,
be.
probably. Well, exactly. Well, yeah, it almost brings up the idea that like, is he the Uber elf? Like is because he's kind of human, but he's kind of transcended, those things. But yeah, but like he flies, he is omniscient. We leave him offerings. Depending on the song you listen to, you either leave him milk and cookies or you leave him a candy cane. Um,
Well, and I want to take criticism of the
mhm.
omniscient. I wouldn't say the character of Santa Claus is omniscient only because it talks about him having to watch.
Oh, that's a good
He
point.
may know when you're sleeping, but he's making a list and checking it twice. I think if you're omniscient, there's what's the point of having a list? Are you going to
That's a
forget
good
in your
point.
omniscience?
That is a good point. Yeah, there's almost a an interaction happening
Yeah.
with his viewing, which is kind of different in that sense. No, that's a good point. That's no, that is a good that's a good thing to call out. So yeah, like there are a lot of nuances with him. Again, we make offerings to him. He shows up at very specific times, and like there's just a lot kind of going on there. And whenever you're little, especially a lot of it sounds really spooky. You're like, we're leaving offerings,
I didn't
like,
think about it that much as a kid,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. I mean, so I was lucky. So like so spoiler alert, if you have little ones listening to this, I want to skip ahead a few minutes.
Yeah.
Um, so spoiler alert, like, so how old were you, Nick, when you do you remember believing in Santa Claus and then not, or like, or do you remember that experience?
Well, I remember the stories and I remember telling other kids stories like
Hmm.
seeing him. I don't know how strong like this is not to say I was always like in doubt of everything all the
Hmm.
time, which is kind of a caricature of me that's developed over the years. I don't know how much I really believed in anything.
Right. Like
Like
his.
I enjoyed a story.
Hmm.
I don't know if I actually had any real conviction that this there was this person that was physically coming or not. I don't think
You were thinking that
I
deeply about it. Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah.
That's my story.
So I was very lucky. I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe, and I remembered like realizing somehow, I don't remember how, but realizing like Santa Claus wasn't real at that age. And which again, I don't think is, I think it's probably relatively average for kids who did believe in Santa Claus to like start doubting kind of thing. But that year, something really kind of cool happened. So I don't know if my parents like got wind that I didn't believe in Santa Claus anymore, or like they just had good timing. But so that year, what they did was I remember waking up on Christmas morning, and of course, like the cookies were eaten and there was like a note left and everything, as you know, as you expect. But what my parents did in the middle of the night is they went out in the snow. This is back when we had snow in December. Uh, my parents went outside and basically like made like tracks in the snow, like like a sleigh had landed and like knocked down some branches and everything, and left like big boot prints and everything, and left a silver bell, which was like part of like a book at the time, I think, that was supposed to like fallen off the sleigh kind of thing. And which was like a very wonderful theatrical thing to do for, I was probably, like I said, like 7 or 8. My brother would have been like 5 or 6, I'd say. So very cool theatrical thing for them to do for their kids at the time. But I remember that so well because I remember waking up and thinking like, okay, Santa Claus isn't real, and then like seeing the tracks outside and being like, there's like, what is, well, then who made the tracks? My parents
Right,
didn't go
right.
outside
Now
my
you're
parents,
grappling with
yeah,
this.
my parents didn't go outside the middle of the night and knock branches off of the trees kind of
Right,
thing.
that'd be
That'd be
ridiculous.
crazy. Who would do such a thing? So like that introduced like just enough doubt, you know?
And here we both still are with me being
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure I believe in anything. You're being
Yeah.
like, I don't, but boy, but there might be this little bit, and you see, it's
Yeah.
the course of our
Yeah.
entire
This is, yeah,
existence.
it's very metaphorical for the rest of our
Well,
lives.
and I'll say this: there's, I mean, I think your awareness of the season, and everything, is
Hmm.
heightened by the fact that, uh, again, if you've got young children at home, is probably
Hmm.
send them away. Your birthday is actually on your Christmas Eve and everything.
Hmm. Yeah.
So and we used to joke with you, like, did you ever get jealous? And you're like, well, how could you
Well,
be?
yeah, I know it is funny. Like the one thing I will say is like having a birthday around Christmas, because a lot of people do them.
Right.
Our friend
You got a
Jeffy
one in
did
like
60. Yeah.
363 and a quarter
Um,
chance.
but one of the things that was cool about it is that it definitely made the rest of the season like just as like important from like a passage of time standpoint.
Mm.
But it's funny because whenever we were little, everyone was at least off of school for my birthday.
Yeah.
And now that we're older, like, yeah, people are busy, but most folks are like off work and stuff, which is pretty cool, you know? So yeah, it's always an interesting time of season. And, but speaking of the Santa Claus thing, and real quick, I had an experience with this whenever we were younger. That reminds me of the Belsnickel stuff. So this is just like a funny story. At least to me, it's funny. So we're over at like, as I'm sure a lot of you have either known or heard, I have a huge family. Very lucky to have a huge family, and we like each other enough that we still always like get together around the holidays with like our extended family and everything. And we've kind of always done that. We were at one of my family's houses whenever we were like real little. Like I was probably 5 or 6. This is a very early memory of mine. Um, and we were having like a Christmas party. So there was like me and probably a dozen at least of my like second and third cousins, and then like their parents' generation and my parents' generation and stuff. Bunch of people. And we're doing like Christmas stuff and everything. And someone knocks on the back door of this house. And all the parents are like, who's that? Oh my gosh, who is
Oh
that?
no. Could
Who
it
is that?
be?
Do you think it is? Do you guys hear anything?
Oh my
And
gosh.
like all of us kids are like, oh my God, what is that? And turns out it was Santa Claus.
No.
It was
The
Santa Claus. It
Santa
was
Claus.
the Saint Nick. He shows up. When I say he scared the hell out of me and my cousins, like I think what happened was someone got scared and just started like yelling or crying. And
Well,
then
some very guilty child
yeah,
was all of a sudden being confronted by
yeah,
all the things they've
and
done.
then everyone else just kind of like follows suit because you just like it's just like herd mentality
Yeah.
whenever you're that little. Um
Can you imagine how bad whatever adult was in the Santa suit
I
felt?
need to ask about that this year and find
You
out who it
definitely
was.
do. You need to
Yeah, I need to
report
ask
back.
because it was literally I'm seeing most of them tomorrow, so I'm gonna ask.
And he
Um,
vowed never to play
yeah,
Santa
and
again.
like it was one of those things where I mean, like it's like a happy memory for me, but like I remember at the time everyone being like, ah, just like it scared the heck out of us. So could you imagine if you're in a cabin in outside of York, PA? In the 1950s, at a farmhouse, and you hear like switch branches,
Oh yeah.
like tapping on the
I thought you were
window.
like saying that
Oh,
that place you were at was outside of York in a
no,
cabin. And
but
he
that would
said
have been no,
1950s,
but
and I'm
I'm
like,
saying like just
who are you
imagine like,
fooling,
but
guy?
that's why again but I'm just saying like imagine like with the Belsnickel stuff,
Yeah,
like I could see that scaring the heck out of kids,
absolutely.
like you really like yeah, I mean, and again, like I said, at age 7, I was like, oh, I don't think there's a Santa Claus. But you have some dude showing up covered in furs and a bag of sticks.
You got the boots with the
They
furs.
boost, yeah, boost. You just triggered me right there. I'm like,
Some trauma
but
associated with that.
about to drop it. Um, but like, but so I can see how that would be effective for kids.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll say real quick. I can see how these stories essentially serve as babysitters, as kind of guardians. They
right.
keep kids on the straight and narrow.
Hmm.
Um, I can see the parental benefit in that. I remember being in high school. Oh goodness, no, this would have been an intermediate school.
Hmm.
It was a history teacher I liked, and he had a big family. I think he had like 7 or 8 kids.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Exactly.
So big. Yeah, big
He
family.
had a van, like a cargo van for that was the family vehicle.
Oh, that's cool.
I remember his name, and I don't
Hmm.
remember many teachers' names from that period where you go from having 1 or 2 teachers all year to having like 14.
Right.
But his first name is Herb. And I
Hmm.
remember, I don't know how the conversation got on, but he said something that I held on to because I remember, well, I'll just say it like this. I think he was just openly asked if he told his kids about Santa Claus or not.
Hmm.
And he was a religious person, not like a real fundamentalist guy, not like
Hmm.
that, but he said something that really stuck with me. He said, "No, I never really told them about it. I never really encouraged belief. I've let them kind of their friends pick it up
Hmm.
just culturally." He
Hmm.
said because when they found out it wasn't real, I would be concerned that they think I had lied to them. And if I would
Yeah.
lie to my children about that, would they then question when I would
Whatever
tell them to
else.
like believe in God or
Or
something like
whatever.
that?
Right.
Like something
Right.
he earnestly believed in.
Right. Right.
And I remember at that time telling him, like, I remember saying verbatim, like, I never thought of that. I
Hmm.
really respect that. And
Oh, for
I
sure.
kind of followed that suit,
Hmm. No,
because yeah,
no, I think that's a really good way of looking at it, and it's interesting too how that's like stuck with you. Like one of the things that I remember whenever I finally like had my first conversation with my parents about it not being real when I was a little
yeah.
bit old, when I was a little bit older, like I remember them explaining to me that like, well, they were like Santa Claus is real, and I'm like, nah, like
Well, the
that's
spirit of Santa is
well, no,
real.
but
We
that's
feel,
but that's like what they said is they're like
yes.
you get to be Santa Claus for all the younger kids now because again like I was the oldest in my generation and everything, so like again when I was young and I heard that really kind of like hit me is it's like oh like now I look back on and think like oh this is someone passing on the mantle of a folkloric tradition saying you get to be the one who like
Carries that torch.
carries that torch and everything. And I remember thinking like a little bit of like having a little bit of pride in that, you know?
That's not, yeah, that's nice.
Hmm.
I could see that. I could feel that too. Yeah, for me, it's like let the culture take it. I was
Right.
never going to, enroll a parent. I was never going to use this as a tool to make sure my kid
Right.
was being good.
Well,
Because
no,
one,
that's
I was never really that worried, you
right.
know.
Right. Well, no, and that's the thing is it's not even so much that like I guess I always kind of looked at it not so much as like a tool of discipline as we've been kind of talking about with a lot of the Santa Claus
It's
and
not discipline, it's preventative maintenance,
preventive
Brandon.
maintenance. That's you're right. Yeah, that's it's like getting your oil changed. Um, but I always looked at it too more nowadays as like it's an excuse to like make kids like happy, you know. And if you can, any excuse to do that is like worth doing. The idea of like the lying kind of come into it.
Hmm.
That never really hit me as much. I mean, like I don't have kids, so like it's different, you know. But that never hit me as much because of my experience with my parents explain like you get to like
Yeah.
take on this tradition. So it's like, well, it just Santa isn't real in the way that I thought he was real.
Mm.
He is real in like the archetypal folkloric sense, you know. And so maybe that's one of the first kind of seeds to be planted in my little brain
And that is much
of
more of a nuanced take on
for
that
sure.
as
Oh, for
well.
sure.
But
And
yeah,
it's like,
I do like your statement. It's like it's a an opportunity to make kids happy and everything, and and you're not wrong. That is a very nice and endearing thing, but it's kind of a funny way of saying like this is the one day a year where you just don't make kids miserable. Just
right. If we
you're
could
gonna
all
turn it around this
turn
one day.
around. Oh my gosh.
Every other
It's
day, I'm bringing these kids down, but
I know, right? But also I think it's like participating it's a way to participate in a tradition, you know.
yeah.
But I'd love to hear if any of you out there have any spooky or heartwarming Christmas stories about Santa Claus or Belsnickel or Buttercat or Yule
Yeah,
Cat or Mary
sure, Kat.
Lou or Krampus
And
or
if you
anything.
do, how can the people tell us about it?
You can find us on Instagram or YouTube at the Ghost Furnace Podcast, or you can just send us an email at the Ghost Furnace Podcast at gmail.com.